He liked it, so he traded for the same kind. Yep, men will do that. And the 4Runner's a popular vehicle in places where it snows half the damn year. But after the Moore murder, and after I talked to him, he traded for a Suburban. Not immediately, Darcy said with a smile. He had that 4Runner of his well after the turn of the century. I know. He traded in 2004, not long before Andrea Honeycutt was murdered down Nashua Way. Blue and gray Suburban, year of manufacture 2002. A Suburban of that approximate year and those exact colors was seen quite often in Mrs. Honeycutt's neighborhood during the month or so before she was murdered. But here's the funny thing. He leaned forward. I found one witness who said that Suburban had a Vermont plate, and another, a little old lady of the type who sits in her living room window and watches all the neighborhood doings from first light to last, on account of having nothing better to do, said the one she saw had a New York plate. Bob's had Maine plates, Darcy said. As you very well know. Of course, but plates can be stolen, you know. What about the Shaverstone murders, Holt? Was a blue and gray Suburban seen in Helen Shaverstone's neighborhood? I see you've been following the Beatty case a little more closely than most people. A little more closely than you first let on, too. Was it? No, Ramsay said. As a matter of fact, no. But a gray over blue Suburban was seen near the creek in Amesbury where the bodies were dumped. He smiled again while his cold eyes studied her. Dumped like garbage. She sighed. I know. No one could tell me about the license plate of the Suburban seen in Amesbury, but if they had, I imagine it would have been Massachusetts. Or Pennsylvania. Or anything but Maine? He leaned forward. This Beatty sent us notes with his victim's identification. Taunting us, you know, daring us to catch him. Perhaps part of him even wanted to be caught. Perhaps so, Darcy said, although she doubted it. The notes were printed in block letters. Now people who do that think such printing can't be identified, but most times it can. The similarities show up. I don't suppose you have any of your husband's files, do you? The ones that haven't gone back to his firm have been destroyed. But I imagine they'd have plenty of samples. Accountants never throw out anything. He sighed. Yeah, but a firm like that, it'd take a court order to get anything loose, and to get one I'd have to show probable cause. Which I just don't have. I've got a number of coincidences, although they're not coincidences in my mind. And I've got a number of, well, propinquities, I guess you might call them, but nowhere near enough of them to qualify as circumstantial evidence. So I came to you, Darcy. I thought I'd probably be out on my ear by now, but you've been very kind. She said nothing. He leaned forward even further, almost hunching over the table now. Like a bird of prey. But hiding not quite out of sight behind the coldness in his eyes was something else. She thought it might be kindness. She prayed it was. Darcy, was your husband Beatty? She was aware that he might be recording this conversation. It was certainly not outside the realm of possibility. Instead of speaking, she raised one hand from the table, showing him her pink palm. For a long time you never knew, did you? She said nothing. Only looked at him. Looked into him, the way you looked into people you knew well. Only you had to be careful when you did that, because you weren't always seeing what you thought you were seeing. She knew that now. And then you did? One day you did? Would you like another cup of coffee, Holt? Half a cup, he said. He sat back up and folded his arms over his thin chest. Moore'd give me acid indigestion, and I forgot to take my Zantac pill this morning. I think there's some Prilosec in the upstairs medicine cabinet, she said.